If you watch any video or read any article about the causes of low testosterone, you're going to get a list of the same regurgitated generic answers. Lack of exercise, poor diet, poor sleep, obesity, diabetes, all these other things. But there's one cause that gets almost no publicity, even though it's one of the most powerful determinants of a man's testosterone levels and overall quality of life. I'll start this video by briefly rehashing those common causes of low testosterone before diving into the deepest reason that most men are completely unaware of and that no medical article will talk about. Without further ado, I'm going to jump into the question that inspired this video. This comes from a Reddit user who asks, why are so many young men struggling with low testosterone? He says he's 29, 6 foot, 230 pounds. He's been lifting weights 4 times a week since he was 16. He doesn't eat the healthiest. He says back in 2020, he started feeling sluggish, all these signs of low testosterone. They found his testosterone was really low. Since then, he's been on TRT. So he started TRT at about 26. He says he feels better, but he's complaining about the side effects. And what frustrates him is that not a single doctor can explain why a young guy like him, who's active, had such low testosterone in the first place. He says it doesn't make sense. Past generations of men didn't seem to have these issues, so why is it so common now? Now this is something that I can actually relate to, because back in college, I had erectile dysfunction and low testosterone. Even though I was young, in my early 20s, and I was working out. I was on the football team, so we were lifting all the time. So how is it that this guy was working out and had low testosterone in his 20s, and I was on the football team working out and had low testosterone when I was in my 20s? We're going to break down some common causes of low testosterone now. Number one, what I would say to this guy, he says he's 6 foot 230. Now that's a pretty high BMI. So I'm not sure what his ratio of muscle to fat is, but if his body fat percentage is anything much above 15%, that's going to have a negative hit on his testosterone, because there's an enzyme in body fat called aromatase. And aromatase takes testosterone and converts it into estrogen. So one cause of low testosterone is a high body fat percentage. He says he's been lifting weights about 4 times a week since he was 16. That sounds great, but I don't know this guy. I don't know how consistent he's been with that. If you lift weights 4 times a week for a month and then take 2 months off, you're going to negate the effects. So your exercise and your training needs to be consistent. The other thing I noticed is that he says he's been lifting weights, but didn't mention any other forms of exercise. Now, one thing a lot of guys miss when it comes to exercise and training and testosterone is the cardio aspect. Your testosterone levels are a reflection or a barometer, a mirror of your overall health. So if you are only training your muscles, your muscle fibers, but you're not training your heart, your circulatory system, your lungs, your cardiovascular system through cardio, your health is not going to be optimized, so neither will your testosterone. So it sounds like this guy's not doing cardio, which means that will cause his testosterone to take a hit. So the second common cause of low testosterone is A, lack of exercise in general, or inconsistent exercise. If you're not doing anything at all in terms of exercise and you're watching this video, then no wonder you have low testosterone. But if you are and you're only lifting but you're not doing cardio, that can be a contributor as well. He says that he doesn't eat the healthiest, but he's mindful of what he eats. That tells me that since he's admitting that he doesn't eat the healthiest, it's probably worse than he's explaining. And this was something that I was guilty of back in college as well. When I was working out for football and everything, all I focused on was protein and getting a lot of calories in because I was trying to bulk. But a lot of the food that I was eating was not great quality. There was a lot of packaged, highly processed foods in there, and processed junk food is terrible for your testosterone for reasons and details that I don't have time to get into in this video. But just trust me when I tell you, processed food is an absolute detriment to your testosterone. And I have a feeling that since he's admitting here that his diet isn't the healthiest, maybe he's eating pizza and candy in addition to the protein, like I was, that will cause your testosterone to take a hit. So that's a third cause of low testosterone, is poor nutrition. And a lot of guys, myself in the past included, are so obsessed with focusing on protein that they don't focus on food quality. So you want to just focus on getting high quality nutrition in. Couple other points to touch on before moving on. He doesn't explain anything else that's going on in his lifestyle. He doesn't talk about his sleep. And sleep is a huge needle mover when it comes to your testosterone. And that was something I was getting wrong back in college. I would stay out late partying. I didn't have a consistent sleep schedule. I'd go to bed at different times, wake up at different times. I'd have blue light in my face before going to bed. In my eyes, I'd be on my phone or studying late on my computer. So your sleep quality and quantity are both really important for your testosterone. So if this guy doesn't have his sleep right, like I didn't back in the day, you can't expect your testosterone to be optimized, because that's actually when most testosterone is produced, is in those surges at night, which is why we wake up with morning wood in the morning, because testosterone is produced at night and is highest in the morning. He also doesn't mention any other aspects of his lifestyle. So he doesn't talk about his substance use, which was a mistake that I made and is another cause of low testosterone. So I'll quickly go back. Fourth cause of low testosterone is improper sleep. But your habits are important as well, and that's what I was getting wrong back in college. I was drinking alcohol, smoking weed, had a porn thing on the side, and all of these bad habits have a negative effect on your testosterone. Alcohol and weed are both scientifically proven to have a negative effect, and frequent ejaculation also lowers testosterone, because every time you ejaculate, your body spikes a hormone called prolactin. And prolactin essentially has the opposite effect as testosterone. So if this guy, even if he's working out 4 days a week like I was in college, but he's drinking alcohol on the weekends, smoking weed throughout the week, and ejaculating every day, his testosterone is going to take a hit. So I don't even know what number we're on now, but I guess the fifth cause of low testosterone is your lifestyle habits, the things that you're putting into your body. And actually under that category is your environmental toxin exposure. So if you're not aware, there's a lot of chemicals in our environment, in our surroundings, called endocrine disruptors, or EDCs. And when these endocrine disruptors, endocrine, by the way, just means hormones, when they get into our bodies, they have a negative effect on testosterone, sperm production. A lot of them also cause cancer. And they're in a lot of products. We got microplastics, we got pesticides that are sprayed on food. These chemicals are found all over the place. So if you aren't actively taking measures to reduce your exposure to all these chemicals in our environment that have a negative effect, that can also lower your testosterone. So maybe this guy is drinking out of plastic water bottles, or what I used to do in college, which makes me grimace thinking about it now, but eating out of microwavable plastics, so like ramen noodles or microwavable meals. You're literally melting microplastics into your food, and that goes directly into your bloodstream and lowers your testosterone. Or even little things like not washing pesticides off your produce. You know, in isolation, these chemicals might just have a minor effect, but when you add them all up through thousands of different sources of exposure, your testosterone can definitely take a hit. And I actually wrote a whole thesis about this my senior year of college. I looked at the prevalence of these chemicals going up. So we've been seeing a lot more plastics and pesticides, which are the two main sources of these chemicals. The rates of these chemicals being produced has skyrocketed since they were invented in the 1970s. And interestingly, since the 1970s, we've seen testosterone levels going down. So we see an inverse correlation between them. We see testosterone going down at the exact same time as endocrine disruptors are going up. This is what I studied for over a year in college. And although there's a lot of other factors at play, like we're talking about in this video, I think the effect of these chemicals has more of an effect than men realize. So if this guy just wasn't aware of that, that could be affecting his testosterone like it did for me before I was aware of it. So quick recap, some common causes of low testosterone: your body composition, body fat percentage. One other thing to touch on there is your muscle mass. Even if you have a low body fat percentage, if you don't have very much muscle, if you're just skinny, your testosterone is not going to be optimized either, because muscle tissue has androgen receptors, and androgen receptors are the sites on the body where testosterone binds to and exerts its effects. And when you have more androgen receptors in your body can produce more testosterone to bind to them. So if you're fat or skinny, or skinny fat, you're going to have low testosterone. So your body composition, your ratio of muscle to fat needs to be right. Second is your exercise. Third is your nutrition. Fourth is your sleep. And your fifth is your lifestyle and all the chemicals you're exposed to, your habits, and all of the substances that you take or don't take. So those are the main biological, physical causes of low testosterone. But this guy brought up something really interesting. He said previous generations of men didn't seem to have these issues, and now it's incredibly common. So what's happening now? And this is a great segue into my next point, which is even if you're getting all of these physical, biological aspects of testosterone that we just talked about, even if you're getting all that right, if you aren't also getting the mental aspects right, your testosterone will not be optimized. And these are called neuroendocrine interactions. When the mind affects the body's ability to produce hormones, a mind-body connection, that's called a neuroendocrine interaction. And a really simple example of this is the fact that you can think your way into an erection. So this is just one way that I'm going to articulate this point before moving on. If you think sexual thoughts and sexual imagery for long enough, your body will get an erection. So this proves that your mind has a direct physical manifestation in your body. And another example of this, and actually you'll see this as a common cause of low testosterone, is chronic stress. If you are stressed by external factors in your life, your body upregulates the secretion of a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. And when cortisol is flowing around in your bloodstream, it blocks testosterone from doing its job. So your mind is just perceiving things that happen to you as stressful, nothing physical in your body. It then produces more cortisol, and cortisol blocks and blunts testosterone production. So these are two examples of how your mind directly affects your body's testosterone production. And I'm using this to substantiate the next point I'm about to make, because it might sound a little bit far-fetched, but I am convinced after everything that I've learned over all these years studying testosterone and in my anecdotal experience, that what I'm about to share next is the number one most overlooked cause of low testosterone in individual men and in society as a whole. And that is a lack of purpose, a sense of purpose or a meaning to live for, a sense of mattering in the world, a sense of contributing something that makes the world a better place is one of the deepest needs all human beings have. And I'm going to put up a picture on the screen of something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it starts at the bottom with biological needs. So this is just food, water, physical safety, shelter, etc. These biological needs at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy correlate directly with the physical causes of low testosterone that we just covered, like lack of exercise, poor sleep and nutrition and all those other things. Those are the physical causes. Now I'm proposing that there's a direct relationship between how high a man is on Maslow's hierarchy and his testosterone levels. And the reason being is because testosterone is just a reflection of a man's overall well-being and a man's overall health. So it's not just the physical factors, it's also the mental factors, which I explained with those examples. So you need to get both the physical and the mental well-being right in order to optimize and produce testosterone at the highest level. So if you're at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all you're focused on is the biological, the exercise, the nutrition, the sleep, but you're not climbing up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I'm going to explain, your testosterone is going to be capped at the physical. But like I just said, higher up on Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a sense of meaning, and at the very, very top is self-actualization. Self-actualization is just doing something that creates value for the world and makes the world a better place. Self-actualization, the reason why this is the highest human need is because human beings, back when we were caveman ancestors, what allowed us to outcompete other species and evolve is our ability to work together. So the human beings who could help others in the tribe and make the tribe better self-actualize. So we evolved this need to help others and make the world a better place, because when every human in a tribe did that and contributed to the group, it made the whole tribe stronger. So now today, we still have this evolutionary hardwiring, this need to contribute. And this is where the sense of purpose comes in. Your purpose is your contribution to the world. It's what you use to make the world a better place and self-actualize. And that's what gives you a sense of meaning and satisfies that deep human craving for having a mission or a purpose in life. And this is especially powerful in men, because in hunter-gatherer tribes, back when humans were cavemen, it would have been the men who were out foraging and, on a mission, a man on a mission, the word, where the women would have been staying back in the cave, tending to the day-to-day duties of taking care of the kids and everything. So going on a bit of a tangent here, but purpose on Maslow's hierarchy of needs is at the top of what we need to thrive as humans. And since testosterone is just a reflection of how well a man is thriving physically and mentally, if all you do is focus on the physical aspects at the bottom and not the top, you're not going to thrive optimally. And if you're not thriving optimally, your body will not produce testosterone optimally. And I have a couple case studies, some examples that I'm going to use to really send this point home. And then at the end, I'm going to explain how you can find your purpose. The first example I'm going to use is soldiers in World War II. These guys smoked cigarettes, drank booze, probably had horribly disrupted sleep because of all the explosions going off. And they didn't lift weights. They exercised because they were running around on the battlefield, but they probably weren't lifting weights. So as you can see, they were getting a lot of the biological factors wrong. They weren't doing all of the testosterone optimization things that you see on the internet. They didn't care about their zinc intake. They were eating rations out of cans. However, soldiers in World War II were still some of the highest testosterone men of all time. And it's because they had a strong sense of purpose to rid the world of evil. They knew what was going on in the concentration camps and with the Japanese bombing America. So they had a purpose, the whole army had a united sense of purpose to defeat evil in the world. And by defeating evil in the world, they're making the world a better place. And this internal psychological sense of mattering and having a place in the world is what allowed their bodies to produce testosterone levels at such a high level. Now, really hardcore critics will listen to that and say, oh, well, we didn't measure the testosterone levels in soldiers in World War II. We don't know what their testosterone levels are. But we know for a fact that testosterone levels have been declining over time. And it's just kind of common sense. I mean, look at pictures of these guys. Listen to them speak. They have all of the outward characteristics of high testosterone, which is, good energy. They were pretty physically fit, but you can just tell these guys they had high testosterone energy. Testosterone isn't just a molecule floating around in your bloodstream and in your muscles. It's alive within you. It's in your biological energy. I know I might be sounding a little bit spiritual here, but I love science, and I've read several books, hundreds of papers. Like, trust me, I've gone into all the scientific research, but there's certain things that science just can't quite explain. Science can provide evidence for these things. For example, there is plenty of scientific research, and I'll pull up a picture right here, that men who attain higher levels of status in society have higher testosterone levels. And in society, how do you attain status? It's usually through climbing the ranks in your career, in your job. And for most people, their career gives them a sense of purpose. It's like, my job matters. Maybe I'm a corporate lawyer and I sue companies for violating human rights, and that gives me a sense of purpose. I'm making the world a better place. So the higher men climb on the status hierarchy according to this research, the higher their testosterone levels are. Imagine, and like I just said, status is associated with purpose in your career. So imagine these soldiers who are literally risking their lives to make the world a better place against the most heinous form of evil the world has ever seen. Imagine how much of a sense of fulfillment and purpose they would get from that. And if we know that status increases testosterone, it is not irrational to draw that connection, to say that having a strong sense of purpose increases testosterone. There were a couple other things that I had written down that I wanted to quickly mention that are far less powerful for testosterone production than purpose, but they do play an effect, and it's something more men should be aware of, and it's camaraderie and competition. Most guys nowadays don't have a lot of male friends. You don't see camaraderie out and about, and this is especially true, and it's something that I experienced right after graduating college. Being a former football player, I always had that team sense of camaraderie, and I'm going to speak more on that in a minute, but we had the camaraderie of a team, or soldiers in war throughout history had the camaraderie of their brothers. The ancient Spartans used to take their children away from their mothers, and they'd put all the boys into a camp called the Agage, where they would train them to be soldiers. So men throughout history always had camaraderie, and this goes back to the time of our earliest ancestors, cavemen working together in tribes, leaving the women at home to go out and hunt woolly mammoths. Camaraderie and brotherhood is deeply rooted into our DNA as men. And there is research that shows that when you spend more time with other men, it increases testosterone. But nowadays, with the nuclear families that we have, a nuclear family meaning a husband, a wife, and their kids, men don't spend enough time with other men. It's usually just the man and his woman, or in today's society, unfortunately, just the man all by himself. So many men are lonely. Rates of loneliness and depression in men are at an all-time high. So to this guy's question about why men in the past had higher testosterone, sense of purpose, but also camaraderie, brotherhood. So for you watching this video, if you want some more camaraderie in your life, one thing that I did after graduating college and not having football was I started martial arts. You can find a great community of people in a jiu-jitsu or a boxing gym or whatever martial art you like. That's a great way to connect with other men, or just going to the gym and working out with other guys. You got to make friends, guys, and have brothers who you work together with and experience life with. And too many men just don't have that anymore. So that's another neuroendocrine interaction. Camaraderie and brotherhood has an effect on your testosterone levels as well. And the other one that I wrote down is competition and winning. And this is something, if you want to learn a lot more about this, which is really interesting, it's in the book, The Virility Paradox. You can pick it up on Amazon. But he talks about, which is scientifically proven, something called the winner effect. And this started in one landmark study where they showed that men who were spectators and viewing their favorite sports teams, I don't remember if it was on TV or in person, whenever their team won, their testosterone levels would spike a lot, like 100%, I think was what he wrote down in the book. And when the team lost, their testosterone levels would drop like 30 to almost 100% down. And there's also a whole bunch of other studies that show that just engaging in competition in any way increases testosterone, even if you win or lose. And this makes sense. Everything needs to be connected to evolution to make sense, in my mind. And this makes sense evolutionarily. Imagine a caveman who goes out for a hunt and he's successful, he wins. He brings back a whole bunch of meat from the woolly mammoth. Brings it back to the tribe. He's a winner. He's on top of the world. And the females would view that as attractive, because females are attracted to the male that gives them the best chance of their offspring surviving. That's how evolution and survival of the fittest works. Survival of the fittest means whoever can create the best offspring. So the male caveman, who is best at supporting survival through winning, which for them came in the form of successful hunts, would have higher testosterone, because testosterone produces sperm and sex drive, which is needed to mate and produce children. So, hunting a woolly mammoth is a form of winning because it helps the tribe win. This increases the male's testosterone, which enables him to reproduce, and that's how winning affects testosterone, right? So when you win and when you compete, your testosterone levels go up. So I know that was a long tangent, but I'm going to bring this back to those soldiers in World War II. They were competing at the highest level. They were literally putting their lives on the line, competing against the Nazis and the Japanese to win battles. So by constantly competing over and over and over again, their testosterone levels would have been chronically high. And they were also winning. The United States won freaking World War II. That's the highest level of winning there possibly can be. So brotherhood and camaraderie and competition and ideally winning are ideal for testosterone production. And the great thing is you can combine competition and winning into your life. You can combine camaraderie and competition into your life through the same avenue in martial arts. Martial arts is competition and it's camaraderie with other men. That's my number one recommendation, to incorporate that into your life. If you're not an athlete, you can also do other sports, but we'll talk about that later. So the key takeaway from the World War II example is that even though these soldiers didn't know all the details about zinc and micronutrients and all the little minor details that affect testosterone, the fact that they had a powerful purpose and camaraderie and competition and they were winning, those psychological effects on their testosterone levels trumped whatever imperfections they had in their biological effects on testosterone, like their sleep, their nutrition, and all that stuff. For the second case study to really drill this point home that having a purpose is one of the most overlooked causes of low testosterone or lack thereof is my own anecdotal experience. And I'm going to put up a chart that graphs my felt testosterone experience over my life as events in my life transpired and changed. So stay with me here. Early in college, I struggled with erectile dysfunction, which I talked about earlier. And this created an inverse of the winner effect, which is called the loser effect. Every time I failed to get an erection, I felt like a loser. And since I felt like a loser, this neuroendocrine interaction lowered my testosterone levels. So even though I was young and I was working out, since I was getting repeated erectile dysfunction, my testosterone levels lowered every single time that happened because it bled into all aspects of my life. My self-esteem, my confidence were down. It's all I could think about. So all day long, I was just in this negative thought spiral about myself because I was getting erectile dysfunction. And this mental activity caused my testosterone levels to be low. So you can see on the graph, in the beginning, early on in college, in my early days of college, my felt experience of testosterone were low. And I'll preface this by saying that, like the World War II soldiers, I don't have blood testosterone measurements for all you nerds out there to prove this. And there's nothing wrong with being a nerd. I'm a nerd too. But I'm basing this on my felt experience, my anecdotal, the texture of how I felt in the world at the time. And the reason why I'm able to use how I feel as a gauge of testosterone is because I've been researching it for years. So I know I can tell when my testosterone levels are high or low based on what I feel. So just trust me when I tell you, I would be willing to put my life on the line and guarantee that if you tracked my testosterone levels at these different points in time, which I'm going to be explaining, they would correlate almost exactly with what you're going to see on the graph. So early in college, I had low testosterone because erectile dysfunction was causing the loser effect in my mind. Now, early in college, I also struggled a lot with stress because I was a student athlete with a double major, so I had a lot on my plate, and I did not handle the stress well. But I wasn't proud of that, and I wanted to really get my mind fortified and overcome this erectile dysfunction and improve my ability, my resilience, and improve my ability to handle stress. I didn't like the way that I let myself get so negative and overwhelmed by a busy college semester. I kind of felt emasculated by it. I was like, other people have lived through so much harder times. Like, the World War II soldiers, case in point. But here I am getting flustered and overwhelmed by a busy college semester. I just didn't feel like a man. So a few years later, during the middle of my college career, I studied abroad in Greece. And before leaving for Greece, I wrote down in my journal I was going to make it my mission to return to America as a man. I had this mission in my mind. I need to finally become a man. I'm not going to let college stress me out. I'm going to overcome this erectile dysfunction once and for all. And I was dead set on returning as a new and improved version of myself after a semester studying abroad in Greece. And what does that sound like to you? Sounds like a sense of purpose, doesn't it? Even though it wasn't making the world a better place at the time, it was making myself better. So my self-improvement journey at that time was my sense of purpose. And guess what? When I went to Greece, I started waking up with morning erections. I had great energy. Even though, and yes, I was cleaning up my health and other things, but I'm convinced that my determination to improve myself, and that being a strong sense of purpose for me, increased my testosterone levels. And it worked. And it was during my self-improvement journey and my whole process of overcoming erectile dysfunction, that was when I started learning about testosterone in the first place. Because, I figured, okay, if I have erectile dysfunction, I might have low testosterone. I started going down all these research rabbit holes, learning about testosterone. So on the timeline of my life, my obsession with testosterone began early middle college, when I was studying abroad and improving myself. So when I got back from Greece, and I will tell you I did successfully improve myself, it was now later in my college career, and at the school that I went to, we were required to spend our entire senior year working on one project. It was called a senior thesis. And since I had just went on a long journey of overcoming erectile dysfunction and overcoming low testosterone, I was obsessed with this topic. So I chose to do my project on testosterone levels. And I learned that testosterone levels and sperm counts are declining over time, like I explained earlier on, and that endocrine disrupting chemicals have an effect on this. So anyway, that's besides the point. The point is, when I got back to America, with all of this new knowledge, I really wanted to share it with the world. And that gave me a sense of mission. My thesis, writing about my experience and investigating how trends in male reproductive health reflected my own experience into a thesis project that I could use for school, that gave me a sense of purpose. So when I got back from Greece, my sense of purpose continued and my testosterone levels remained high because my purpose was my thesis. After the thesis, I was still playing football and we were doing great. We were on the way to making the playoffs, and our goal was to win a championship. So once my thesis was over, my sense of purpose continued because now it was win football games. That was my purpose. It was my senior year. It was my last year of football. So my goal was to win a championship. And when you combine that with competition and camaraderie, my testosterone levels were really high then. But then came graduation. And this was a really low point in my life because I had an identity crisis. I lost my identity as a football player. And as a student, I've always taken pride in being a good student and being well educated. I always got great grades. And being a football player, I had been a football player for over a decade, so it was deeply rooted into my identity. So I lost my identity, and I also lost my sense of purpose, which was my schoolwork and my football. Football and school had been my purpose since as far back as I could remember. Getting good grades and being an athlete, being a student athlete, that was my purpose my entire life. And now I lost it, and I had no idea what I was going to do with the career. I thought I wanted to be a doctor, but doctors mostly just prescribed pills, and I didn't want to do that. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, so I was at an all-time low. But at that point, I started learning about business, and I realized that I could use everything that I learned in the past about testosterone, and thankfully living in a free market in America, I could essentially sell my knowledge to other people, which helps them, and I can make a living in return. So that became my purpose, was starting my business. And It's today still is my purpose, and that's what I'm making these videos for. And my testosterone levels, ever since I found that sense of purpose with my business, have been probably higher than they ever have been, because this business and helping, using my knowledge and my experience from everything that I've learned in my anecdotal experience and my studies, using everything that I've learned to now help other men improve their testosterone levels and overcome erectile dysfunction and get in the best shape of their life. Since I'm now helping other men and not just myself, it gives me so much more of a sense of meaning and purpose and fulfillment than anything else I've ever had in my life. And speaking of that, if you're a man struggling with low testosterone and you think my experience could help you, just check out the link in the description. There's a link to my program called the Testosterone Transformation Academy, where I teach students everything I've learned in the past to help them implement all these pillars of biological health and purpose into their lives to help them optimize their testosterone. So if everything I'm saying resonates with you and you think you might benefit from it, check out that link and you can apply to see if you would be a good fit for my coaching program. So coming full circle here, my personal experience in life has been that my felt experience of having high testosterone has directly correlated with my sense of purpose in life. So everything that I'm saying isn't just theory that I've thought about, it's something that I've lived and experienced. So by now, you should be pretty well convinced that it's not too far-fetched to say that one of the most overlooked causes of low testosterone in men is lacking a sense of purpose. So if you happen to be like this Reddit user who asked the question, why do I have low testosterone even though I'm working out? Here's my actionable, measurable, whatever takeaway that you can apply to your own life starting today. If you feel like that guy, if you have low testosterone, start with the basics of your health. I don't mean to overblow, or I don't mean to downplay the importance of your biological health. By all means, exercise, strength train, and do cardio. Get your nutrition right. Sleep. Avoid these chemicals. Kick your bad habits. Lower your stress through meditation. Get all of the biological pieces in place. But as you do that, start going on a vision quest in your mind. If you have some job or career and you're just droning along, you don't really like what you do, you don't really care, if you just lack meaning in the world, start thinking about ways that you can find a sense of purpose. And here's how you can do that. Think about some sort of an injustice or something that pisses you off about the world. Maybe, or even just something that you're really passionate about. Maybe it pisses you off that we are spewing greenhouse gases into the environment and heating up the globe. Or maybe you're pissed off that, you look on the side of the road and there's trash and litter everywhere. Our oceans are full of plastic and it's killing animals and our environment is going to shit. Maybe you're really passionate about the environment, but you're working for a bank, down the road, and that has nothing to do with your actual passion in life. Well, then quit that job and make your purpose in life to help clean up the world and make the environment a better place. Or another example, maybe it pisses you off that healthy food is so expensive. I talk about eating healthy, but it is pretty, it's a little more expensive. Maybe then you could start a chain of local organic farms that make healthy organic food much more available for the common person. So if that's something that you're passionate about, and I'm just using these two examples because they're other passions of mine, but if you have this deep sense of passion or you sense some injustice in the world, or I'll give you one more example. Maybe world hunger is something that really bothers you. Maybe the fact that there's other people starving in other countries. I don't know. Think of your own examples. But we live in a free market economy where you can create a source of income and make a living doing pretty much anything you want. And it's not necessarily going to be easy, and it doesn't have to be starting a business. It can just be finding a job that aligns with your purpose. But whatever you spend most of your waking hours doing should be something that you find deeply meaningful and fulfilling. But if you wake up every day dreading going to work and you feel like it doesn't matter, you really need to change that, because it's not only having a negative effect on your own experience in the world. I mean, don't you want to live a life where you're full of energy and passion for what you do. So it's your own experience, but also your testosterone production. You are essentially psychologically castrating yourself when you don't live your life to the highest level, when you don't have a sense of purpose. So I'm just going to check my notes to make sure there's not anything I'm missing. I would also say, apply the camaraderie and the competition aspect. So start befriending other men, start incorporating competition in your life. This can be just more of a side hobby, but maybe you could combine your purpose with camaraderie and competition. Maybe you could find a couple other guys on an online group who share your sense of purpose and share your sense of mission. You use that sense of camaraderie to bring you all together and then execute on your shared vision for the world. So there you're combining camaraderie and purpose to optimize your testosterone production. So of course, all this really is more important than just your own testosterone, but I can tell you, once you have a purpose in life, your testosterone and your felt experience of just well-being in life will drastically improve. So if you have low testosterone and you don't have a purpose in life, find one, and I promise you, your subjective experience of the world will drastically improve. That's it for this video.